Hi guys, today we are going to explore the Anasazi Indians and we are going to learn about how they developed over time. So we're going to be taking a look at basket makers and Pueblo dwellers. On December 18th, 1888, two ranchers were looking for stray cattle. Richard Wetherill and Charlie Mason followed cattle tracks to the top of a mesa. At the top, Wetherill got off his horse and walked to the edge of a cliff. He looked out across the canyon. On the canyon wall across from him, he saw a wide opening. Inside it were the ruins of a cliff dwelling. Wetherill had seen cliff dwellings before, but he had never seen one this large. It had dozens of rooms. Many of them were stacked, one on top of another. Near the center was a tower that rose 3 stories high. It was as big as a palace. Wetherill named it Cliff Palace. The two men rode to the other side of the canyon. Then they climbed down into the ruins. On the floor of the huge cave, they found pottery bowls, mugs, water jars, and a stone axe. The people who lived there hundreds of years before had left most of what they owned. In the weeks to come, Wetherill and Mason found other cliff dwellings, like Cliff Palace. So this is our area where the Anasazi began. We have studied the Plateau Valley region of Colorado, and the area shaded in gray shows where the cliff dwellers lived. And actually this says the basket makers. So they began as the basket makers. And you're going to find out why. Ancient people of the Four Corners. The cliff dwellings are located in the Four Corners area. The corners of 4 states, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona, meet there. The mesa that the men rode up is called Mesa Verde. And we saw a video about Mesa Verde right before break. The cliff dwellers are known by different names. The Navajo Indians called them the Anasazi. That Navajo word means ancient enemies. Perhaps the two groups of people were enemies long ago. Archaeologists today call them the ancestral Pueblans. That means that they are the ancestors of the modern-day Pueblo Indians of New Mexico and Arizona. They also are called basket makers and Pueblo dwellers. The word Pueblo means town in Spanish. The dwellings in which these people lived were like small towns. So we're studying the Anasazi, but they have other names. The Anasazis today do not like being referred to as an enemy. So that is why you see them called the ancestral Pueblans. The basket makers and Pueblo dwellers lived in the Four Corners area for nearly 1,300 years. Their way of life changed over this long period of time. To help describe these changes, archaeologist Frank H. Roberts, Jr. divided this time into 4 periods. The first is the basket maker period. Next comes the modified basket maker period. It is followed by the developmental Pueblo period. The last is called the Grand Pueblo period. In this chapter, we will look at each period. So here is where the villages were actually located. So here's Mesa Verde, and here is the part of Colorado where we're actually studying, the early Pueblo settlements. All right, so today we're going to be creating a sequencing flow map for each of these 4 periods. The first period that we're going to look at is the basket maker period.